Well, welcome back to another Blunt Force Business. I am Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino. Today, we're going to convince you to have a website chat and have a website chat that doesn't suck.
I would agree that having it not suck is probably an important point to today's
and
conversation.
by website chat, this is going to be part of this is additional videos and podcasts about just using automation and part of your business and part of your marketing, but in particular, just a part of like you're running your business. And in terms of website chat, what we're talking about is if you visit someone's website and, how would you describe the chat? Like, how would you?
Well, usually you see it, it'll be bottom corner or
Yep.
something. Sometimes it'll have a little person, like a whatever you call those things.
It's usually a stock photo.
Avatar.
Yeah,
have a little avatar of
yeah.
someone that, that's here if you have any questions, here if you have any problems. And, you can engage with it and they'll engage with you and all that good stuff. And there's some really, really viable functionality there,
right.
even for a small business. I think that's a reason why people might not have that set up is because they feel like, oh, the only way to do that is you have a dedicated tech person and they're sitting there waiting for customer service to manage the chat. And I think we're going to convince them.
Well, we're gonna talk about some of that stuff, but I think that one of the big things to consider is that a lot of times people don't realize that they have this functionality. It'll be built into their website platform, or it'll be something that's available to them in their CRM, their database system that they use to manage their customers and their whole sales flow. And it might just be a function that they just have access to. They don't have to buy extra. It just exists.
Right.
Or it comes out of the box with some of these Wix and Weebly and Squarespace sites, right? It's just like an option that they can add on. And the idea of automation being like just a way to save money and be more productive. Right?
Absolutely.
And I think these are the reasons to implement it. And it may be easier than you think, right? So blunt force fact number 1, in terms of why you're definitely going to want to have a website chat and why it isn't going to suck, is because people hate people.
Everybody says that. I love when people say that, actually.
I hate people.
Yeah. I hate people. Yeah, right. Funny, not funny. We talk a lot about personal interaction and customer satisfaction, and so it is funny for us to be doing this today and talking about how in a lot of cases people do hate people and they want the quickest and easiest way to get access to what they want without having to. Nothing dreads me more than when my wife says to me, "Can you call Verizon?" Or can you call? I'm like, oh, Jesus, do I really have to go through that exercise?
Right. And one of the ways that robots have kind of helped all of us, especially us older dudes, is like, we're going to date ourselves a little bit, is like when you get lost and you wouldn't know where you were and you'd have to ask for directions. Like, no one has to do that anymore.
No.
Pretty much.
No.
But like,
nobody, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But like, that was a thing.
Point is gone.
Yeah. And that was like a common, like, bad sitcom, bad movie trope would be like the husband and the wife are in the car and they'd be lost, and they would still be lost for a while because the husband would refuse to ask for directions.
Because he knows about our blunt force fact.
Exactly.
And agrees that people hate people.
Yeah.
Right.
That's part of it. And I think it's also just, it was an ego thing. Whereas this is a little bit less about ego, and this is more just, we've now come up in this idea, this era of PCs and smartphones and all those different things, right? Where now you don't have to interact with people, and maybe you've lost some of that ability.
Well, I think even if it bothers it might bother us, it might bother our listeners, that is a reality of a bit of the world we live in. And there's ways that, so there are many ways we're going to talk to our listeners about how and where it's really important to maintain that personal connection with your customers. But what we are talking about today is ways where you need to leverage this function to the fact that whether you like it or not, this exists.
Right.
The current landscape of people wanting to be able to just engage with the easiest touch point, right? And a lot of us view that as chat.
Right, exactly.
Text or chat. They're the same.
Right.
Why do we text people? Because it's easier. Even people we like. Even people we like, we text them because it's easy.
And there's a certain, now that we're kind of used to it now, I mean, there's a certain environment where, like, if you're in a noisy environment or if you're in an environment where you need to be quiet, like, so it's like either one, right? So it's either like I'm on the train on my way to work, or I'm traveling, I'm in the airport, or I've got my family around because I work from home, you know, so these are times when I don't want to be vocal.
Yeah.
Right. So that's when a chat can come in handy.
It allows you to multitask.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I've managed chat on one of my computer screens while I'm working on another project on the other.
Right.
Right. So I don't have to give it my entire focus, but I can keep a task moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So like sometimes I just don't want to, you know, I mean, I would way rather have that operating here in my chat here where I can engage with the person that I'm trying to ask a question of, whatever company I'm working with. And I would just rather, you know, customer service oriented or software oriented. Like I have a question about a software I'm using, engage with the technical chat, you know what I mean? Like, and like sometimes this is me where they'll be like, oh, can I have a phone number to contact you at? And I'm like, no, because I'm one of those people who's like, if I'm engaging with you on the chat, then I don't want you to call me.
Really?
I would have called you if I wanted to talk to you on the phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, you're saying as the customer?
Yeah, I'm the customer. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. Gotcha.
Yeah, people hate people, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like if I'm dealing with you on the chat, if I reached out to you by chat, it's because that's why I wanted, that's how I wanted to reach out to you.
Yep,
and there's now a growing segment of people who would way rather engage with a business via a chat than picking up a phone.
Yeah.
You know, and it's for a variety of reasons. One is, like we talked about, maybe you're in a busy environment, it's too loud. Maybe you're in a quiet environment, you want to keep quiet. Or maybe you just don't like people. Right? You just way rather, or maybe you've had so many bad experiences. Exactly. You've had so many bad experiences dealing with customer service, or like, you know, maybe you've had these experiences where there's some sort of language barrier in your customer.
Yeah.
And so you just rather engage that way. So by having this chat functionality, you are giving people a really, really easy way to engage with you if they're in a busy environment or an environment where they need to be quiet. You know, just like here's a way that they can get in touch with you. And I think that the number of people who, and there's also like there's always these opportunity costs, right? So this probably doesn't happen a lot, but like depending on the business, right? If I'm comparing two different businesses for two different things I'm interested in, and one of them is just kind of just a regular website where I have to click on the contact page to get in touch with them, and the other one has a chat, I might be more likely to engage in the chat because I know it's going to be a quick way of getting an answer.
Right. And even let's take the word likely out of it. Maybe you're looking for something. Right. Okay. And so on the first website you went to, you filled out the email form. On the second one, you got the chat, and you got further down the rabbit hole. So now I got you. Exactly. Right. I got you because I just took you a little further down the rabbit hole where now we're going. Yeah. And you may ignore that email from the other company and when it comes in tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, this goes for other website additions you can have, like having click-to-call buttons versus having like a phone number where you have to type out the phone number in your phone. Yeah. I mean, like there's a whole bunch of different ways where that kind of works similarly, but having this chat just, again, like it gives you a leg up on companies that don't have the chat, just a way of having an immediate interaction. And I think what chat does really well, it allows for a blended merger of our AI and then actual people interacting. Well, yeah, we can get into the different types of chats you could have for sure, where you have different responses based on different responses. Yep. Using AI, but I think just this idea of just making sure that you are having like, so you've got, I think as a business owner, when you've created your website, you want to give the maximum number of ways for people to reach out to you the way that they want to reach out to you. Mm-hmm. And there is a certain number of people who don't like dealing with people. Yep. Or can't deal with people. And we have to recognize that. Right. And so like having that option is essential in not losing that particular segment of customers. Right? People hate people. People hate people. Blunt force fact number 2, and this is more of like a productivity thing and a scaling your business thing. Yeah. Is we really want to start, especially in 2023, is leave the busy work for the bots.
right? Busy work is for bots. It's not for business owners. Business owners. So the fact is, busy work is for bots, right? So, especially for a solopreneur.
I love that fact.
Right. Solopreneurs are really, really small businesses where maybe I don't have every aspect of my business is more dedicated to doing the actual business. Like if it involves machinery, it involves being an electrician, or it involves having a clinic where like you don't want to have your money being spent on administrators.
Right.
Who are answering phones and taking notes, right? You really want your money to go to the talent, right? The people who are doing the fixing, who are building the product, who are, helping people with their actual problems versus like setting appointments, right? And all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where if you can use this chat with some automation combined, right? Use the automation where you're developing a script for as many possible scenarios as you can think of, right? So it's like, questions, right? Where you have to answer the qualifying questions. And this is like a big part of how, like banks in particular, banks and credit cards or whatever it is, like, there's a certain number of people who just are calling the bank to get their balance.
Yep.
Right. And so at some point they were just like, we can't have like, how can we figure this out? Like all these people are just calling for mundane questions, how to get to the office.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, all right, well, how do we solve this problem? Rather than having somebody have to answer all these questions and paying this person over and over and over again. Well, these are questions that are so common that they can just be answered by the system. We don't need to answer these questions. And now you can do that from your own business perspective. And it's just like, how can we help you? And you give them a list of things. Right. And this is also pretty easy to set up for anybody who's like a minuscule tech savvy. And again, it could be built into your website platform.
Absolutely.
Or it could be part of Facebook offers this service where you can install a bit of code on your website and use their messenger system. And you can build out the script that way as well. Right. And so you can build out the script so it asks some qualifying questions. So it knows like, does this person really need me?
Yeah.
Or can we just answer like, do you just want directions to the office?
Yep.
Yep. Or as you were talking about before, your way of getting people to set up appointments.
Yeah.
With you.
Right. So, we use a Calendly app for all our appointment scheduling. And within those automations is if you're looking for, if your free consult, just click this button.
Right.
We don't have to have a conversation about it. I don't have to waste your time. You don't have to waste mine. You know what you want.
Right.
And you just want me to guide you to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with all of that being said, having automated a lot of those things and in the chat function, so now we're grabbing the people that want immediate gratification without really talking to someone.
Yep.
And we're going down the rabbit hole of being able to meet the need. And does it take a little bit of time up front? Absolutely. It does take, you're going to have to set a little bit of time or money to pay someone to do it aside to say, all right, we got to set this up. Once it's set up, what are you tweaking it? Maybe once every 6 months?
Right.
Just maybe.
Or you just get really, really good at it. And now it's taking care of a whole bunch of the front end things.
Yeah.
Setting up appointments, providing quotes, answering common questions.
It allows for growth without additional expense.
Right.
So you set it up well, and you can now grow. And that chat doesn't care if one person's asking it or 100 at the same time. It's doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Right. So it's not being a time suck to in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And there's a little to be said too with giving your website the feel of being well developed.
Right. Or how about this? Giving your really, really small business a sense of professionalism.
A big business feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
The more you can make it look like, hey, we know what we're doing.
Yep.
Like we have a staff. We're prepared. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's where a lot of those little avatars come in too, because you can tell. I mean, like, I'm sure there's some unseasoned. But if you're watching this, you're probably more of a seasoned consumer of things, right? But like a lot of times, like a consumer will go to a website and there's like the little picture. It's like clearly a stock picture. That's not the person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's not them. You know, we've set up, and I've set up these for companies where it's like the person who's answering on the chat side, a real person is answering.
Yep.
That they don't want their face up, so we'll do a stock picture for them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
in any event, this goes aside from the fact. I mean, the fact is that by using this automation, if we do it correctly, that we can give the professional feel, and we save ourselves a ton of time.
Yes.
Right. We save ourselves money. We don't have to hire somebody to do it.
Yep.
But we can use the bots. The bots can take care of all the stuff that's mundane, answer the simple questions, book appointments, get them in touch with the right people. You can do all of that through some of these automations that are built into these chat systems.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that blunt force fact. Busy works for the bots. I'll share really one quick thing before we go to the other one. I was working with my son today, who's 24, and in a lot of ways, technically very advanced, right? And integrates it like you would expect a 24-year-old to. And I was showing him a way to leverage AI in in helping him just kind of develop wording for his resume. And the minute I said AI, he immediately walked away. Literally. So I'm like, whoa, what are you? And so he's in theater. And right now there's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we acknowledge the fact that some of our listeners out there might be very scared or have, concern about anything that is done in this fashion. My opinion on this, just to lay the table on my opinion on the underlying bot that we're talking about, is it's like anything that's new. There's going to be good that comes out of this. There's going to be bad that comes out of this. There will be government regulation that comes out of this, right? And it will figure itself out. But don't disregard the stuff that's pretty mundane, right? Isn't hurting, really harming, and is there for you to accelerate your ability to do business.
Right.
So it's never going to go away. So if you go on the camp of, well, this whole thing is going to get banned, that's not happening.
Right.
Whether you want it to happen or not. So that personal feeling of wishing it to go away, it won't, will definitely get regulated. I'll be amazed if this doesn't become regulated in some fashion, like any new technology does. And then from there, it's how can you leverage it?
Right.
Okay. And you'll have your own left and right limits of how you'd want to use it. But in the fashion we're talking about today, a very, very good way to kind of, if you're a little iffy on it, this is a great way to just introduce it and get some benefit from it that your competitor is definitely getting.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be left behind. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
You also, if you want to think of it from a apocalyptic vision, is you want to be the freaking boss of the robots, not of the robots be the boss of you,
yeah,
right? I mean, you want to be in charge, right? And the only way to be in charge is to start following it now.
Yeah.
And a really easy way to start is with these chatbots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and automate that part. The more of that part of it you can automate. So you have your web chat in the corner of your website, answer the mundane questions, or even you can get some of these branching decisions where it sends it. If you do have more people in the organization, it'll contact this person who's involved with the technical aspect of your business, this person who's involved with the billing aspect of your business, right? You can automate that whole thing, so it just gets everybody in touch with everybody it needs to get in touch with.
Yes.
You're dealing with the people who don't want to deal with people. They don't want to email you. They don't want to call you. They'd rather just take care of it right there without even going to a different page of your website. It's right there in the corner.
Yes.
And it's saving you time and money.
Awesome.
And it's a better customer service.
Yeah, absolutely. What's our last blunt force?
Well,
fact
this
for
is
today?
this is like the caveat.
Okay.
Almost.
Yep.
Because we did say we're gonna convince you to set up a website chat, but you don't want it to suck, and it can suck.
Okay.
There's a bunch of different
how does
ways
it suck? How can it suck?
Because, and actually, you and I had this discussion before. There are some website chats where it'll be leave your email here and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. All of a sudden you've turned a potential positive, all these positives we talked about, into a negative.
Yep.
Because if I wanted to wait 24 hours, I wouldn't have interacted with the chat. I would have called, or I would have, I wouldn't have interacted with the chat. If I'm interacting with the chat, I want an immediate response. That's the whole reason I'm doing that instead of calling or emailing or navigating the website and trying to figure out what I want.
Right.
So the challenge, and this is early adopter, and maybe some of you made this mistake where you just set up the chat because it was part of your package, and it seemed like a fun thing to do, and it seemed like it made your website look professional. It made you look like you had your act together. But website chats can really easily just be a negative. And there's other things like this as well. I mean, like having dead links on your website. Like a lot of people put their website up and they'll have all the social media icons on it, but
and they don't go anywhere.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've never set them up. You don't actually have a Twitter account. You don't have Tumblr or whatever. There's usually accounts on there, like you don't even know what the thing goes to.
MySpace.
Yeah. Or Twitter. Like everyone got involved in Twitter right away, especially a lot of businesses. They're like, oh, Twitter. And before you know it, they haven't tweeted in 5 years. And now it looks like you're not even in business. Right. So it's a negative. Now that's like, is it a big deal in the grand scheme of things? Might not be. But if we're comparing companies, I'm comparing who do I want to do business with for whatever I'm trying to reach out for, and one has a website where everything works and everything's current, and another one, like, links are broken, and you could be doing better business, more business, because you have more loyal customers, whatever. But for somebody new, now you've maybe lost somebody just because of this negative experience.
Yeah, right. And
the chat experience, any kind of lag time or wait that you haven't dealt with effectively, could end up being a negative experience.
Okay.
That drives instead of now it's not helping you. Now it's actually driving people away.
Okay.
As soon as I click on that chat and I have to wait for a second, like I'm getting antsy. And as soon as like now it's like, and if it takes me down a rabbit hole, it's like, we can't help you, then I get mad. And it's like, all right, well then think about the people that we're dealing with who are trying to do business with.
So for our listeners out there who want to install something like this, but are, hey, listen, I'm on the road or I'm at a job most of the day, how would you recommend they choose to install?
Well, the easiest thing is you just think about that.
Yeah.
Think it through, right? You have to have a strategy. So that's the best thing to do is to not just go.
Yeah.
Is to have your strategy ahead of time and think, okay, well, what if the person has to wait?
Okay.
Right? How do I deal with that?
Yeah.
You and I talked about this before. I mean, you can be, first of all, you want to make sure that there is either an automated response or a personal response.
Okay.
Right? And you can usually set that up in your chat where you can be like, if either it's automatically going to be an automated response throughout a series of questions, the qualifying questions or whatever it is. Maybe it's an automation that's set up right. The usual one is like, if, hey, like leave us an email address, so that now you're at least capturing a lead.
Right.
And like if everything else drops off, at least you've got the email address. Now you can get in touch with them, and you can sync that with your email platform so that they're getting a follow-up email like, hey, we're sorry we missed you on the chat. But we're reaching out anyway, right? So like you can set all that up ahead of time, or you can have make sure that if the chat is getting in touch with you via some notification, make sure that works. Right, so make sure that the notification works, because like I've set up these with companies like, oh, we didn't get back to them. Why didn't we get back to them? Oh, I didn't see the notification.
Right.
So then the notification, like, what's the use of it? Like if the notification doesn't work, or the notification doesn't go through it says it notified you and it didn't work for whatever reason, right? So you got to make sure that all works. You got to make sure that if there needs to be a person answering a question, that there is a person answering the question, right? So whether it's having somebody actually available for certain hours, I think that's a big part of it. Is you can set the hours that the chat comes up.
That's a big
whole
one.
Hours during the day where it's like from 11 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning.
Yeah,
I don't want this thing. I'm not going to be able to answer it.
Right.
Because you could have also the auto reply where it's like, we don't answer from this time.
Right.
Which is a perfectly good way of doing it.
Yeah.
But also could be a negative. It's like, I know I like to work at night.
Yeah.
And sometimes I need to interact with things. And it's like, oh, I can start a chat with these people? That's great. And it's like, no, I can't.
Well, better to have than not have.
Right.
But it's just like the out of office reply. You need to quickly let them know, like, hey, you're not going to get anyone right now, but here's how you can.
Yeah, exactly. Reach out to us in the morning. It's a perfectly good, like, if you're a good enough company and they're willing to wait, like, it's perfectly fine. You ever heard the comedian Mitch Hedberg?
No. Well, maybe. A lot of times.
He died. He was young when he died.
Okay.
He's relatively recent, like 15, 20 years in that time frame. And he was like a one-liner comedian, sort of like Stephen Wright, like these ridiculous one-liners. And he had this bit where he's like, it was 3 a.m. and I was walking by a dry cleaner and they had a sign in in the window that said, "We're sorry, we're closed." And it was like, "Mr. Dry Cleaner, you don't have to be sorry. It's 3 a.m. and I'm at the dry cleaner. It'd be ridiculous for me to expect you to be open." Right? It's the same thing. It's like, yeah, there's a certain expectation. It's like if it's like super late at night and it's just like a, power washing company or whatever it is, right? It's like, we're not going to expect you to get back to you during the but there's a lot of companies I deal with, like if it's like software related in particular, where it's like I'm expecting to get a response. It's usually someone from other part of the world or whatever it is. But like you said, you prepare as much as you can, or you can switch it off. Like so certain hours it doesn't pop up.
So you can, on most of these, they will be be there and not there depending on how you set them. Which makes sense.
I think this is the lesson is that customers will not wait. Right? And there's going to be an expectation based on what format they reach out to you that they get a response. An email, you might, and the quicker, I mean, like there's all sorts of studies. We'll probably do a video or something like that on like the quicker the follow up. There's here's the drop off. Right? It's like if you follow up within a minute, like you get a response right away. A half hour, it goes down a little bit, an hour, a day, and then all of a sudden like it freaking flatlines. If you haven't gotten back in touch with somebody after like a certain amount of time, you are not getting back in touch with them. You've lost it. Right? And so like for a chat, it's got to be near the top. It's like instantaneous. It's like within seconds you have to get back to them. If you don't have the capability of getting back to them, you have to have automation set up. You have to have a way of maybe turning it off, because there is the chance that this could be a negative for you if it's not an automatically positive experience. And you want to avoid anything that could potentially be negative. Like, and that comes from like if you have social media accounts, keeping them active, right? Even if you're not into it. Because the worst thing could be like, oh, he hasn't made a Facebook post in 7 years. Is he still in business? Like, are they still doing it? Like, why? I get it, because you're enthusiastic. Like, oh, I'm going to start posting on Instagram. And you post on Instagram for a few months. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't have time for this anymore. It's not working for me anymore. And it's like, but you still have it linked on your website. And there's no experience there whatsoever. And the chat is one of those things that could easily become a negative. Or it could break. And if you haven't been paying attention to it and the chat breaks, and it's like, all right, well, now this is a negative experience instead of being a positive. But the biggest thing, and this is like when I'm advising customers on this, is do we have a strategy for the follow-up? If they're going to interact with the chat, do we have somebody immediately who's going to get in touch with me? Or I had a customer, I just turned off their chat because it was similar. It was like I tried to interact with them around like 5, and then I got a response at like 11. And it was actually an SM. It was like it got me to SMS. So the chat actually led me to leaving my email for an SMS conversation. And I got a response at like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, this 5-hour lag turns me off. And it's like if I'm interacting with a chat, I want the immediate response, or let me know, like, our office hours or whatever, please get back to me, would be a better experience than there being a 5-hour lag.
Agree.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, okay, like, look, there's this segment of people who don't like people. People don't like people. They would love to interact with you with a chat. So have it. Right? And then having the chat solves all sorts of issues. Solves people issues, time issues, right? And if we can work with AI, or we can work with just some sort of scripted automated responses, then we solve ourselves a lot of issues. So let the bots do the business. Busy work is for bots. But number 3 is customers don't wait. So if you don't have a way of this immediate interaction, these people are going to drop off a cliff the seconds and minutes that you don't reply to them, then you have to think through, is this even something I want to do? And if it is, then I have to think it through, like, how do I make sure that this is a positive experience?
Right. Love it.
I'm Patrick Marino.
I'm Brian LaFauci.
Thank you.